Hey, welcome. And finally, in this section, we are going to be able to either approve and reject new vendors. Okay, now to do this, we have to go back to our VS Code, then the vendor widget. And what we can do is we can use Ctrl and D to make this wide. And you can see over here, we have this function, right? The elevated button basically. And within the elevated button, it has a property known as child. And we basically gave a test widget. And what we want to do is we want to have a check over here after this, right? Okay. We can then call this vendor user data. Then we want to have access to a field that is the approved, and we want to check if it is equal to false. Then remember this question mark means then we want to have the elevated button, and over here we can add the else part to this else. And for the child, this is going to be a test widget, and it's going to say approved. And this is a function with and use control and has to save. And within the parentheses, we want to basically have access to the Cloud Firestore package in order for us to be able to update this approved to true and to false. To do this, we're going to be using the Cloud Firestore package, and remember we had earlier installed that. So what we can do is we can create a variable to store that finder, and it's going to be a type of Firebase Firestore, and we can call this underscore Firestore Firestore, and it's going to be equal to Firebase Firestore, then dot distance. Okay, and we can break this, and we're going to be using the await. And basically, whenever you want to call the Firestore, you mostly have to use the await because it will always take some time to have access to the collection. And in order to use the await, we have to use the async over here. And now we can then say await underscore fire. What did we call this? Just gonna check this quickly. Okay, underscore fast. So I'm just gonna copy this and click on this to go back. Then dot. What is happening? And cloud faster underscore faster. We cannot have access to that underscore. Okay, sorry. We can. Okay, sorry, not here. That was why we could not. You can see we created this within the vendor data widget. So get rid of it over there, and we're gonna paste this right over here, or we can just paste this over here. Sorry, still do not have access. We can paste this. Where are we going to paste this? Okay, we have this over here, and sorry. Okay, over here I was a little bit confused. And now we can say underscore file store, then dot collection, and the name of the collection is vendors. And now we want to update that field for we want to update that approved for this specific vendor, right? Okay. Now to do this, we are going to access this field or these fields we have over here by the vendor ID. So what we have to do is we want to access the document, right? So we have to go further by saying your doc, and we want to access it by the vendor ID. To do this, we have to call the vendor user data, and within it, it has this vendor ID. So we basically want to access that document. And now you can then say dot update. Sounds good. And it is a map. And the data we want to update is a field called approved. And basically, we want to set this to true because it is equal false. And now we can easily just copy this. And within the health part over here, we can paste this. And we have to use the async over here. And this is going to be set to false. False. If it is equal to true, then we want to set to false. And if it is equal to false, we want to set to true. And hopefully understand all this. And I'm going to use Control and S to save. And this is basically what we need. And first of all, we check we checked if the approved is equal to false. Then we want to update it to true, that is approved the vendor. And this over here means else. Else, if it is equal to the opposite, we then want to update it to false. Sounds good. And also you can see we have this test, and this says reject, and this says approve to approve, and this says reject to reject. Sounds good. And we are definitely going to have multiple vendors or a lot of vendors. And in order to key to a specific vendor we want to update, that was why we have to create this extra field called vendor ID. And you can see we are having access to this document based on the vendor ID. And also you can see the vendor ID is basically the name of our document or the name of the document. And if we create another vendor, this document is going to be different from that other document. That is the name or the UID is going to be different, right? And basically, we just want to update the user or the vendor based on their vendor ID and hopefully understand all this. And currently, the vendor is approved, and let's change this to not approved. To do this, we just have to go back to our web admin panel and then vendors. And now you can see currently it is currently approved. And now we can click on this to reject, and you can see and go check your uh your database, and it's going to be set to false. Seems good.